Good morning. Today you heard the story about Lazarus being raised from the dead. This account presents complex themes that are not easily related to today's experiences, particularly since resurrection is outside ordinary human capabilities. But before I get into today's message, I wanted to give a little plug for the Wednesday night Bible study this church, your church, has every Wednesday evening. I have come to learn that some things we fail to understand about the Bible, or what Jesus did or did not do, has a lot to do with the fact that he is Jewish and that he follows Jewish traditions, Jewish customs, and Jewish laws. Things that we don't necessarily know that much about, not being brought up Jewish. But my plug for the Bible comes in because recent sessions have provided valuable insights into Scripture by exploring ancient and contemporary Jewish practices. Last week's Bible study was about the Last Supper. The narrator, Ray Vinderland, in the video discussed the Last Supper in its relationship to the Jewish Passover Seder. We all like this Last Supper story. We even have our communion based on the Last Supper. But how many of you put together that the Last Supper was really a Seder, a yearly tradition that goes back to the time of Moses? We had a very good video, one of the best ones we've ever had, that explained the relationship between the Last Supper and the Jewish Seder, and the Jewish customs that went along with it. Jesus' death coincides with the Jewish Passover, where death of firstborn males would not enter to properly mark doorways. Jesus also dies at this time. My point is that if you are interested in furthering your understanding of the Bible, I encourage you to join the Bible studies. Now, let's get into the story of Lazarus. Jesus was sent an urgent message that Lazarus was gravely ill. Mary and Martha wanted him there ASAP, but Jesus hesitated. To Mary and Martha, he kind of ignored their message. When he finally arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. The point to make here is for anyone waiting and praying for something to happen, it teaches us that silence from God isn't necessarily indifference. It means he has a different timing for us. As the saying goes, all good things come to those who wait. Mary and Martha didn't understand this. They both complained to Jesus that if he had arrived earlier, Lazarus would still be alive. For you, it might be 4 days, a week, a month, a year, but God will provide. This part of the story tells us just to have patience. And Jesus knew what he was doing. We all think he was making sure that Lazarus was really dead before he was going to raise him from the tomb. Here comes the Jewish part. How many of you know that the Jews believe the soul lingers near the body for 3 days post-mortem? During that time, it hovers in the vicinity of the deceased and is aware of what is happening. By arriving on the 4th day, Jesus demonstrated to witnesses that Lazarus was definitely deceased, reinforcing the authenticity of the miracle. When Jesus arrives, he gets an earful from Mary and Martha. What happened next? We are told Jesus wept. Why the heck would he mourn with them if his intention was to raise Lazarus up? This response illustrates empathy rather than providing immediate solutions or theological explanations. Even though Jesus knew what he was about to fix the problem, he stopped to feel the pain. He didn't offer a lecture on faith. He offered his presence. Jesus shows us that validation comes before restoration. He cries with the sisters because he is a friend standing in the dirt with them. He also stands with us. Before the correction happens, there's a time of mourning. You don't have to have it all together to be close to God. He meets you at the tomb, not just at the finish line. Up next is the removal of the stone. Jesus had the power to make the stone vanish, but he commanded the people to move it. Why? Because Jesus won't do for you what he has empowered you to do for yourself. Martha complained about the smell. We do the same thing. We want the miracle, but we want to keep the stone rolled shut because we're ashamed of the mess inside. We hide our addictions, our debts, our brokenness, but you cannot heal what you refuse to reveal. If you want the resurrection, you have to be brave enough to open up the dark places of your life so light can get in. The point here is that before the miracle happened, the people had to do something practical and uncomfortable. We need to do the same in our lives. Next, we have Jesus saying, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Lazarus walked out alive, but he was still wrapped in funeral linens. Think about that for a moment. He was dead, wrapped in burial clothes, and covered in oils and perfume. That must have been a very awkward walk. And what was he thinking? All of a sudden, he has life again, but he was wearing his burial coverings? As we relate to this, many of us are alive, but we are still bound by the bandages of our past. Labels like failure, unworthy, or not good enough. Jesus told the community to unbind him. He was also telling you, freedom is a team sport. You need people, family, friends, mentors, therapists, to help you peel off the layers of who you used to be so you can finally walk into who you want to be. And then, Lazarus didn't raise himself. He had to listen when his name was called. We need to do the same. I think there are many times when God speaks, but we are not listening. We miss the opportunities he has provided for us. Sometimes things happen to us and we feel that God has dropped the ball, when in fact it is us who dropped the ball by not hearing him speak to us. I love this line in The Lion King when Rafiki tells Simba to look into the pond. Simba sees only his reflection, but Rafiki says, "Look harder." When Simba does, he sees his father in himself. We need to be sure we are looking hard enough to see past the surface of our problems. In conclusion, there are a lot of lessons to take away from this story. It is not just a story of one of Jesus' miracles, but it imparts lessons about patience, God's compassion for us, his willingness to help when we are willing to take steps to help ourselves, and to make sure we hear him when the opportunity is there. Thank you, and have a blessed day.